Hi everyone. You might remember back in February I did a wee video talking about the 7 big themes from the book of Genesis. Well, I thought this week it would be appropriate to do something similar for the book of Exodus. This coming weekend we remember and celebrate the death and resurrection of Jesus. In the days prior to his death on the cross and resurrection from the grave, he was in Jerusalem where they were celebrating a great event in the history of the people of Israel. That's the story of Exodus, which is recounted in the second book of the Bible, going by the same name. In that story, it tells of how the people were saved from the wrath of God by the blood of a spotless lamb. It tells a story of how the people were rescued from slavery under a corrupt king and brought into relationship with God. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have a look at 6 big themes or movements in the book of Exodus. If you've ever read the book, you'll know that it seems there's one half is full of exciting stories and the second half is full of laws and details about building a tabernacle. But I hope that we'll see that those two are intimately joined together. The reason why the people were rescued is for the second half. But let's have a look at these 6 themes. And the first one I want to say is that the people were saved to sing. After the people had got through the Red Sea, gone past the threats of death under Pharaoh, they sang praises to God, sang about how he had won victory for his chosen people, how he had remained faithful to his promises to the offspring of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, the people of Israel. And so they sang praises to him. But then the people, they are also one to be a witness. You see, they are rescued, they are saved so that they might be the way that God shows his holiness to the world. He describes what their identity will be, is a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. They are to be a beacon of the righteousness, grace, and the grace of God to the watching world. He is a key part of their plan to show off his character and his purposes for the entire cosmos. And then the people, they are called into a covenant relationship. One part of the book of Exodus you might have heard of is the 10 commandments, or literally the 10 words. But just before, the very sentence before the first commandment, God says to the people that they are those whom he has called out of Egypt. This is very similar language to that used before God made his covenant with Abraham in chapter 15, where God said that he called Abraham out of Ur. And so the idea here is that the people of Israel are being brought into a covenant with God. The people then are redeemed for righteousness and rest. So in those 10 commandments, we see here the standards of righteousness that the people are called to. They are to worship God alone. They are to obey their parents. They are not to steal. They're not to covet other people's property. They are called into a life of righteousness because they serve the righteous God. But they are also called to rest. In Exodus 5, God denies the request of the people of Israel to go out and worship, and he denies them any chance to rest. And that's why you see so many references to the Sabbath in the second half of the book of Exodus. Because part of God's salvation for his people is he wins rest for his people. They are also delivered to dwell and delight in God. Like I was saying, in the second half, you get all these details about a tabernacle. But this is the really good part of Exodus. Some people, when they're reading through the Bible plans, tend to skip through this, so their eyes glaze over as they read through it early in the morning. But this is the part, the great promise, that the people who were cast out of the presence of God in the Garden of Eden are brought back into the presence of God at the tabernacle. This is where he dwells in his glory. And so the people dwell with him, and they delight in his glory, worship in his splendour, gaze at his beauty as he dwells among his people. And finally, they are set apart to serve. They are to serve God in this new place, in this new calling. And God empowers them by his Spirit. So these are the 6 ways that we can understand the book of Exodus, which ultimately points us towards what Jesus has done for us and the life that we are called to now.